It is no secret to a lot of people that Morgana team is not doing so well in the current Abyss because the Wolf are not able to be CC'd using Venti Elemental Burst, as well as it's very hard to face them in general just because they're very mobile. However, the Chinese Fury Crafter might have just came up with a brand new variant of Morgana as well as a new rotation that make them much more favorable against the Wolf, and this variant I really enjoy and it's much easier to play as well. It's Rosaria instead of the Diona, and it used prototype Ember on Yamona instead of a healer. The main focus of this team is to maintain high freeze up time so that your Venti Elemental Burst can hit the entire thing, which you can currently see on the screen that the enemy is permanently frozen, and so Venti actually does hit the entire Elemental Burst through. Most importantly, because their enemy have really good frozen uptime, you don't really take that much damage. Compared to the existing Morgana team, this team does not use a single Ganyu charge attack at all and opt for a 15-second rotation instead of a 20-second rotation in favor for much better freeze uptime, which is greatly appreciated when facing against the Wolf enemy. And because you have so great freeze uptime, the enemy doesn't really get a chance to attack you, and you can actually see that even as we approach the end of this chamber here, most of my character, if not all my character, are currently actually at full HP. This team also uses a completely different rotation than the existing Morgana team, and it's one of the huge reasons why this team worked a lot better, which is the rotation currently being demonstrated on the screen. We'll start the fight by deploying a Ganyu Elemental skill, which moves us away from the enemy. We're also going to drop the Mona Elemental skill on top of the exact same spot, and this will instantly freeze the enemy as we have both Cryo and Hydro deployable currently on the enemy right now. Moving away a little bit from the enemy, we're going to cast the Venti Elemental Burst and skill immediately. As the enemy is currently directly away from us, the Venti Elemental Burst will land exactly on top of the enemy and will be able to shred the Cryo resistance of the enemy. And the key is actually right here. When we cast Rosaria Elemental skill, it will actually move us directly back on top of the enemy because Rosaria Elemental skill teleport you on top with a homing ability, which allows us to drop Rosaria Elemental Burst, Ganyu Elemental Burst, and finally Mona Elemental Burst all directly on top of the enemy, and therefore refreezing the enemy. Finally, just do another Venti E and Rosaria E and you're good. You can see that this freeze is not perfect, it's not 100% freeze uptime, but it has a very good freeze uptime to the point where the Wolf was not able to escape from this corner at all, and we pretty much kept him in this corner. Most importantly, we also kept him in the Venti Elemental Burst pretty much the entire time. Something interesting about this team, in case you weren't able to observe, is that Ganyu Elemental skill moves you backward, and then you can drop the Mona Elemental skill from range, and then casting the Venti Elemental Burst, because Venti casts the Elemental Burst directly some distance away from you, this will cast directly on top of the enemy and allow you to hit the entire Venti Elemental Burst as they're currently frozen. And then when you switch to Rosaria and cast her Elemental skill again, this will move you on top of the enemy once again, and you can just cast your Rosaria Q, Ganyu Q, and followed by Mona Q. And this will freeze the enemy once again, putting them into place, and you will just repeat. So Ganyu Elemental skill, move you backward once again, you go through with your regular stuff like Venti, Rosaria Elemental skill, move you forward on the same spot once again. So you don't even have to move at all in this team. Compared to the existing Morgana team, this team uses a 15-second rotation instead of a 20-second rotation. It does require pretty high intensive APM because you do have to press the exact right button in the exact right order. This includes all your elemental skill and elemental burst. It's also a very rapid quick swap team, so again that's also contribute to the high APM that you need. However, the thing I really enjoy about this team is that once you know what button to press, that's the only thing you need to do. Again, this team does not require any Ganyu charge attack at all, so it doesn't take any skill. You just press E and press Q in the exact right order, and you pretty much are done. In fact, you can actually play this team without using a mouse. The only thing you have to care about is pressing E and Q in the right order in the right timing. It does mean this team have a pretty high energy requirement, not pretty high but just a higher in general, because anytime that you are unable to fulfill energy and you're missing an elemental burst, your entire rotation will be doomed. Building this team is pretty much the same as always. On your Ganyu, I have the prototype Crescent, but you will not use the Amos Bow as you don't use any charge attack. Artifact wise, of course, the 4-set Betrayer, and likewise for Venti, VV set with traditionally either the Elegy for the End, the Stringless, or if you're missing energy for your team, I'll recommend using the Fav Bow, as it'll give your energy entire team. However, the difference is on Mona, you want to be using the Prototype Ember instead, as this is your only source of healing. It's not that important, as you can pretty much perma-freeze the enemy and not take any damage, but just in case you do care for a healer, Prototype Ember is here. The artifact wise, I'm currently running Noblesse. However, you can actually run Tenacity on your Mona, which passes on the Noblesse onto your Rosaria. I don't have a good Tenacity set, so I'm using Noblesse on my Mona instead and using the Blizzard Stray on my Rosaria. This situation is also fine. And of course, you want to be using the Felonious Lance on your Rosaria to generate a bunch of energy for your Ganyu or just the entire team. One of the cool things you know about this team compared to existing Morgana team is that in traditional Morgana team, you cast your Ganyu elemental skill at the beginning of the fight, which means you don't really get buff. However, in this team, you cast it at the end of your rotation, which means you will be able to snapshot all those buffs onto your Ganyu, including the Noblesse, Tenacity, or Elegy for the End if you're using that on Venti. It does mean your damage come out on this team slower. It will take some time for the damage to ramp out on this team. Once again, because you do cast Ganyu Elemental Burst at the near end of the rotation instead, but it will give you overall greater damage. I know that people are gonna ask if you can use Kokomi instead of Mona. Unfortunately, it just doesn't really work out because Kokomi have a 20-second cooldown on her elemental skill, which doesn't fit the 15-second rotation. On top of that, Kokomi will actually cause Venti Elemental Burst to go Hydro instead of Cryo due to too much Hydro application, so it just doesn't really work out. As the energy requirement is rather tight, what you can do when you're playing this team is that when you finally swap to the Rosaria, simply cast Elemental Burst first and then Elemental Skill, and then switch to Ganyu to funnel all the energy into your Ganyu. This will let you get away with a much lower requirement on Ganyu and potentially solve your energy issues. I know the other question that people is gonna ask is that, oh, can you use Kaza to replace Venti instead? Unfortunately, it's just not the same with Kaza, as his elemental skill plunge will shatter the freeze, which kind of defeat the purpose of this team, which is to maintain high freeze uptime. But also because Kaza elemental burst come out in a melee range, which is different from Venti. On top of that, Venti also have the 15 energy refund, which is really important for this team, as this team have such a short rotation that every energy really count and is really tight on the energy and the rotation time. So overall, no, Kaza doesn't really replace Venti here. Overall, personally, I do really enjoy this team. In the background footage here, I'm actually playing this team without using my mouse at all. I'm simply pressing E, Q, and Shift on my keyboard. I do really find this team very comfortable, as that's the only thing you have to do. You don't have to aim or anything, you just press your key in the right sequence and you beat your enemy. And this is actually just a, well, I don't want to say a straight upgrade, but a little bit better variant than the original Morgana team ran with Diona or Diano. Simply because Rosaria just does much more than Diona. Rosaria gives your entire team crit rate and do much better damage using Rosaria Elemental Burst. So overall, this team is just a slightly better variant than the original Morgana team. With that being said, as always, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see everyone next time.